My father said to me once, when I was telling him I was like an alcoholic, he said, listen, a dirtbag bar, he goes, a corner bar has played a role in every Dylan's life. He goes, I was like, well, that's not really, I have a real problem. He's like, your Uncle Tommy had Buckley's. He goes, I had a place called The Bitter End. I'm like, that's not, but okay. But I will say this about having a good dirtbag bar. You learn a lot about the world from places like that. There is this idea in our culture now that the only place you can learn things from is the number one, the digital space, or even more importantly, you can only learn things from successful people. This is like the real interesting, because it wasn't always like that, by the way. All of these parables in the Bible and the, literature forever has focused on like a lot of the greatest literary characters, Don Quixote, Willy Loman, any of these people, right? They've been failures, they've been, delusional, they've been miscreants, they've been ne'er-do-wells. But now we're only learning anything from like successful people or people that pretend to be successful. And that's kind of unfortunate, because a good corner bar, a good gin mill, a good watering hole will show you how not to live. It's important to know how not to live. It's important to know what giving up is. It's important to know, truly, really, it's important to know what it looks like when you let the things that you battle with win. It's important to know what it feels like to have absolutely no fight left in you. And that's what a lot of those bars will open your eyes up to. Because again, the first few times you go, it really is a lot of fun, and everybody's goofy and silly, and people are laughing maniacally. They're charged up. It's a madhouse in those places, because that is it for those people. That is it. You might be stopping in ironically, or you might be going in to see what the deal is. Their lives are that bar. They are there as much as they can be, 24/7. So they're in their element. They're having an uncomfortable amount of fun sometimes. And then when they have breakdowns and they get really sad, they're also there. They don't leave. They don't go away to have their moments. Everything, the whole tapestry of life, the highs and lows, are there. And, it's good to see what that is like. And I did it when I was in my early to mid-20s, and then got out of that and decided I wanted to have another life, which I also recommend. But I will say this, I don't regret the time I spent sitting in that bar, drinking alcohol with people, doing cocaine, and talking about nothing. Because that's what those bars are. You don't really talk about anything. I'd sit in there, people's children would come in crying and go, they try, a woman would come in and she'd try to drag her husband out. She'd be like, you've been here 3 days, you have a daughter, you disgust me. And he'd be like, fuck you, get out of here. And the 11-year-old daughter would be behind her. And he'd be like, I can't believe you're using her to come in here and make a point. And then she'd leave, and the kid and her are crying, and she'd leave, and the guy looks at me, he goes, she's very selfish. I go, I can tell, I can see how she'd be a problem. And I go, that's very performative, bringing the daughter in here. I go, I don't like that one bit. He goes, I agree. And then we would, do shots and drink. It is a nice time to kind of connect with different people, but you should learn exactly where your threshold is. Where is your limit? How big of a piece of shit are you willing to be? David Carr, who was a media reporter for the New York Times, wrote a book called The Night of the Gun. He's smoking crack. He's looking at 2 kids in the back of the car. David Carr said, I was prepared to be a bad person, but I wasn't prepared to be a bad father. A lot of the people I hung out with were prepared to be bad fathers, but they weren't prepared to not be fun, because they were fun. Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some weird mind voodoo from your crazy neighbor. We're talking about our sponsor. This article makes no sense. It takes at least 200 hours to make a close friendship and more to maintain it.
What?
This is completely insane. What is this? What is this? The Wall Street Journal?
Yeah.
So whenever the Wall Street Journal writes an article like this, by the way, it is simply trying to get you to buy stocks or something. Like, the Wall Street Journal has no interest in social behavior outside of the paradigm of capitalism. They don't care. They don't care. It does not interest or fascinate them. So whenever they put this stuff out, it's like when Bloomberg or Barron's or any of these financial things writes about culture, it's always because they want you in some way to be a better unit of production, and this is why they're writing it. They're not writing it because they have like an interest in your spiritual life, you know? You know that article that came out where they were like, you don't need dining rooms, the dining room's going out of style. Who needs hallways, you know? Just have a door from one room to the next. Like, they're doing that so you get used to less and less. And you walk into a house one day that's gonna look like a shelter, and you go, that's fine, because I read that no one needs dining rooms anymore. They're preparing you for the type of life they kind of want you to live. Many of us worry that we don't put in enough time to maintain close friendships. But how much is enough? As we trek further into adulthood, many of our friends fall away. It's understandable. Family and jobs become more demanding and free time more limited. Yet because of the Wall Street Journal, we may want to meet a close friend for coffee or dinner.
What?
But our calendars are full with work, must-do appointments, meetings, or kids' activities. About 88% of U.S. adults say they have lost touch with a close friend at some point, and 71% would like to rekindle that relationship, according to a 2020 survey. 4 in 10 Americans have said they didn't have a best friend at all. This is the epidemic of loneliness. Dude, this is a big thing now, by the way. This is a big deal. We're reading about this all the time. Research on the science of friendship does offer some insights that can help you maintain friendships. Among the lessons, be realistic about how many good friendships you can reasonably maintain. And then they go into the science of friendship. I like this.
What?
Unfortunately for the hyper-efficient among us, there's no magic formula for how much time you need to spend on your friends to keep them. Can you imagine the sickness of this art, like the insanity of this article? How insane this is. This is a sentence I'm going to read in. This is in the Wall Street Journal. Someone printed this in the Wall Street Journal. This is not like a paper that is, you know, you line a litter box with it. It's the Wall Street Journal. Unfortunately for the hyper-efficient among us, there's no magic formula for how much time you need to spend on your friends to keep them.
What?
Each friendship and friend is unique and thrives or withers depending on how we interact.
No way.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks so much. One of the most powerful papers in the world that has decided, by the way, during a time when we have a war in the Middle East where 30,000 people are killed, I believe the vast majority of them children, that we are bankrolling. We're about to go to war with the Yemeni Houthi rebels or whatever. The global balance of power is shifting and realigning all the time. We are now in $34 trillion worth of debt as a country. The Wall Street Journal, a paper who's created a lot of these problems, is writing about buddies. They're writing articles about your buddy and where's my buddy go? Hey, they're killing children in Gaza right now at a pace that is like even Jewish people now are going, hey, God. They're choosing to write about where's your buddy go? Did your buddy leave? Where did your buddy go? Your buddy got on a different bus and he moved to a different town. This is written for 5-year-olds. What's happening is like all of these articles are written now like they're like, let's pretend you were a human being. They're written like you're already AI and you're becoming a human. Listen to this. In order to move from casual friends to close friends, you need to spend an additional 140 to 160 hours together for a total of about 200 hours. That's completely untrue. That is a complete lie. That is completely untrue. That is not true. I have close friends and I've not spent 200 hours with them. That's completely untrue. Conversely, spending 200 hours together doesn't necessarily mean a person will become a close friend. Of course it doesn't. Who is this for? Who is writing these articles at the Wall Street Journal? Like there's nothing else going on? 200 members of the ruling class just got exposed in a document as potential pedophiles at the Wall Street Journal's like, do you and your buddy have lunch? Sometimes your buddy